The maid thinks she understands French. William Harrington's voice cut through the dining room, followed by a wave of laughter from investors seated around the 40-foot mahogany table. Crystal chandeliers flooded the room with warm gold light. Wine glasses shimmered. Silver cutlery reflected across polished marble. Olivia Carter kept her eyes down and continued pouring red wine into a guest's glass. Her hand remained steady. Her face revealed nothing. But she felt every stare, every smile, every quiet judgment. "Tell me, Olivia," William continued, leaning back in his chair. "Can you even point to France on a map?" More laughter. Someone nearly choked on their drink. Olivia forced a small smile. She had worked inside the Harrington estate for 18 months. Long enough to know when silence was safer than truth. Long enough to know that men like William never expected answers from people like her. Across the room, a wall of glass windows overlooked the city skyline. Rain hammered against the panes. Thunder rolled somewhere beyond the dark clouds. Inside, the dinner continued. Investors discussed mergers. Attorneys reviewed contracts. Millions of dollars moved through conversations as casually as dinner plates. Olivia stepped away from the table carrying an empty silver tray. The metal felt cool against her palms. Then she heard it. A voice. Soft. Almost hidden beneath the noise of the room. A foreign investor seated near William leaned toward another man. He spoke quietly in French. Most people would never have noticed. Most people would never have understood. Olivia stopped walking. Just for a second. Her pulse stumbled. The silver tray nearly slipped from her hands. The investor smiled as he spoke. Calm. Confident. Certain nobody around him understood a word. Olivia felt a chill move down her spine. The sentence was short. Only one sentence. But it changed everything. Her eyes drifted toward the thick contract resting beside William's chair. Suddenly it looked different. Dangerous. The investor continued smiling. William laughed at another joke. Nobody noticed Olivia standing perfectly still beside the dining room doorway. Nobody except Sophia Harrington. William's daughter watched her carefully from across the table. Olivia immediately looked away. Keep moving. Keep quiet. That was the rule. Yet the words echoed inside her head. Again. And again. And again. She knew exactly what they meant. The room suddenly felt hotter. The air heavier. The distant hum of the climate system blended with the sound of rain against glass. Olivia set the tray down in the service station beside the dining room. Her hands were shaking now. Not from fear. From certainty. She had heard something she should not have heard. Something William desperately needed to know. But who would listen? A maid? Outside, lightning flashed across the skyline. White light flooded the room for an instant before fading away. The investors raised their glasses. William reached for a fountain pen resting beside the contract. Olivia's stomach tightened. Not yet. He had not signed yet. She took a slow breath and stepped back toward the dining room. Every step felt heavier than the last. Her shoes clicked softly against the marble floor. Nobody noticed her approaching. Nobody expected her to speak. William uncapped the pen. Several investors smiled. Cameras from a few financial journalists quietly recorded the moment. Billions of dollars depended on the signature that was about to happen. Olivia stopped beside the table. The pen hovered above the final page. William glanced up, annoyed. "What is it now?" The room grew silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. Olivia swallowed. Every instinct told her to walk away. Instead, she looked directly at William. Then at the foreign investor. The smile on the man's face vanished instantly. Olivia felt her heartbeat pounding in her ears. The entire room waited. And then she said 6 words that made the investor go pale. "Sir, that is not what he said." The investor's face lost all color. It happened so fast that only Olivia noticed it. 1 second he was smiling. The next, his fingers tightened around the stem of his wine glass. The dining room fell completely silent. Rain hammered against the windows. Somewhere deep inside the mansion, the low hum of the climate system vibrated through the walls. William slowly lowered his fountain pen. "What did you just say?" His voice was calm, but the irritation underneath it was impossible to miss. Every eye in the room turned toward Olivia. She could feel the pressure immediately. The investors, the attorneys, the executives. Dozens of expensive suits staring at a woman in a housekeeping uniform, waiting for her to embarrass herself. William leaned back in his chair. "Olivia." A faint smile appeared on his face. "Please tell me you are not about to explain international business to my guests." Scattered laughter rolled through the room. Not loud this time. Nervous. Olivia felt heat rising into her cheeks. The humiliation was familiar. But the sentence she had heard would not leave her mind. Across the table, the French investor remained silent. Too silent. Sophia Harrington noticed it too. Her eyes narrowed slightly. William tapped the contract with his pen. "Well?" Olivia swallowed. Every instinct told her to apologize and walk away. That would be easier. Safer. Instead, she looked directly at the investor. "You said the company would belong to you within 6 months." The room froze. A glass slipped from someone's hand and lightly struck the tablecloth. Nobody laughed now. The investor immediately answered in French. Fast. Sharp. Defensive. Several guests looked confused. William smiled again. "Unfortunately for your theory, none of us speak French." Then something unexpected happened. Olivia answered him. In perfect French. The room stopped breathing. The investor's expression shattered. Shock flashed across his face before he could hide it. Sophia sat forward in her chair. One attorney slowly lowered his wine glass. William stared at Olivia, not understanding what he had just witnessed. The French conversation continued. Back and forth. Faster. Tighter. Like a tennis match nobody else could follow. Olivia never raised her voice. Never hesitated. Every response came instantly. The investor's confidence began disappearing sentence by sentence. Sweat appeared along his forehead. William's smile faded completely. "What is happening?" Nobody answered. Because nobody knew. Olivia suddenly stopped speaking. The room became silent again. The investor looked away first. That alone felt wrong. Men like him were not supposed to lose control. William rose from his chair. The movement echoed through the room. "Translate." Olivia hesitated. The investor immediately interrupted. "That is not necessary." His English was suddenly much better than before. That made several people glance toward him. William's eyes narrowed. "Translate." Olivia drew a slow breath. Her hands were trembling now. Not from fear. From the weight of what she was about to say. Outside, lightning flashed across the city skyline. White light flooded the room for an instant. "He said," Olivia began quietly, "that the contract contains a provision hidden inside the acquisition structure." Nobody moved. Nobody blinked. "Once the agreement is signed, your voting control gradually transfers to an offshore holding group connected to his partners." The room exploded with whispers. Chairs shifted. Attorneys exchanged stunned looks. William's face hardened instantly. "That is impossible." Yet the certainty in his voice was already fading. The investor stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous." His chair scraped sharply against the marble floor. The sound cut through the room like a blade. Olivia watched him carefully. Then she noticed something. A briefcase resting beside his chair. The metal clasp had come loose. Inside, partially visible beneath several folders, was another version of the contract. Different. Thicker. Marked with handwritten notes. Her stomach dropped. Because she recognized one symbol on the corner of the page. The same symbol she had seen years ago while working as a translator on an international fraud investigation. Olivia's heartbeat thundered inside her chest. Slowly, she looked up at the investor. And at that exact moment, he realized she had recognized it too. The investor saw the recognition in Olivia's eyes and immediately snapped the briefcase shut. The metallic click echoed across the dining room. Too loud. Too fast. Too guilty. Every conversation died. Rain rattled against the towering windows while lightning flashed across the skyline beyond. Olivia felt her pulse hammering inside her chest. She knew that symbol. She had spent months staring at it years ago during an international translation assignment that ended with regulators dismantling a fraudulent acquisition network spanning 3 countries. Most people would have missed it. She had not. The investor forced a smile. I believe this discussion has become inappropriate. His voice sounded calm, but sweat glistened along his temple. William noticed it immediately. So did everyone else. The atmosphere in the room shifted. The power no longer felt stable. William stepped away from the contract and toward the investor. His expensive shoes clicked sharply against the marble floor. You seem nervous. The investor laughed. Nobody joined him. The silence that followed felt heavier than any accusation. Olivia wished she could disappear. Every eye in the room kept returning to her. The maid. The outsider. The woman who somehow knew things she should not know. One attorney quietly opened the acquisition documents again. Another investor lowered his phone and stared at Olivia as if seeing her for the first time. William turned toward her. His expression hardened. Who exactly are you? The question hit harder than he intended. Olivia felt the familiar sting beneath it. Not curiosity. Doubt. She looked down briefly. Then back up. Just someone who understood what he said. William shook his head. No. He pointed toward the closed briefcase. You recognize something. The room waited. Olivia remained silent. Across the table, the investor shifted uncomfortably. His hand rested on the briefcase handle now. Ready. Defensive. Then Sophia spoke for the first time all evening. Dad, maybe we should listen. William glanced at his daughter. The interruption irritated him. But before he could respond, another voice entered the conversation. She is right. Everyone turned. The attorney reviewing the contract had gone pale. He slowly removed his glasses. There is a secondary voting mechanism hidden inside the partnership structure. The room exploded into whispers. Several investors stood up. Chairs scraped across the floor. The investor immediately stepped forward. That clause is standard. The attorney shook his head. Not like this. William's face tightened. For the first time, genuine concern appeared behind his confidence. Olivia watched the realization spread across the room. Yet something still felt wrong. Incomplete. The hidden clause explained part of the problem. Not all of it. The investor knew it too. She could see it. He was still worried. Far too worried for a man whose secret had already been exposed. Then Olivia noticed his wrist. A faint tremor. Tiny. Almost invisible. Fear. Real fear. Her eyes drifted toward the briefcase again. The symbol. The reaction. The hidden clause. Suddenly the pieces aligned. Her stomach dropped. The contract was never the real objective. It was bait. A distraction. The realization hit so hard she nearly lost her balance. William was asking the wrong question. Everyone was. Olivia looked directly at the investor. This acquisition was never about control of the company. The room froze. The investor's face went blank. Not confused. Caught. William stared at her. What does that mean? Olivia swallowed. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She was stepping into dangerous territory now. Territory built entirely from instinct, experience, and a sentence nobody else had understood. He does not want your company. Even the rain seemed quieter. He wants access. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The investor slowly tightened his grip on the briefcase handle. William's expression darkened. Access to what? Olivia looked toward the data center diagrams attached to the merger proposal. Then toward the secure infrastructure reports stacked beneath them. Her pulse accelerated. The answer was forming. But before she could speak, a phone suddenly vibrated on the table. Then another. Then another. One after another. A chain reaction of alerts lighting up screens across the room. Attorneys. Investors. Advisors. Faces changed instantly. Confusion turned to shock. Shock turned to disbelief. William grabbed the nearest phone and stared at the screen. The color drained from his face. Slowly, he looked up at Olivia. "How did you know about the breach?" The room went completely silent. Because Olivia had never mentioned a breach. Not once. William stared at the glowing phone screen as if it had suddenly become a weapon. Around him, dozens of other screens illuminated the dining room with cold blue light. Investors. Attorneys. Advisors. One after another, faces shifted from confusion to alarm. The soft hum of the climate system seemed louder now. Somewhere beneath the mansion, backup servers vibrated through the floor with a low mechanical pulse. Rain hammered the windows. Nobody touched their food. Nobody cared about the contract anymore. "What breach?" William's voice cut through the room. He looked directly at Olivia. The pressure hit her instantly. Every eye followed his. The maid. Again. The easiest person to blame. The easiest person to doubt. Olivia shook her head slowly. "I did not know about a breach." William held up the phone. His jaw tightened. "Then why were you talking about access?" Silence. The investor's face had become rigid. Controlled. Too controlled. Olivia noticed it immediately. People panicked when they were surprised. He looked like someone watching a plan unravel. The distinction mattered. Across the room, an attorney scrolled rapidly through the alert on his device. "The company's secure research servers were accessed 37 minutes ago." A wave of whispers spread through the room. William's face drained of color. 37 minutes? During the dinner. During the negotiations. During everything. Olivia felt her heartbeat quicken. 37 minutes ago, the investor had already been smiling. Already confident. Already certain the contract would be signed. The realization tightened her chest. "The breach happened before the signature," she said quietly. Several people turned toward her. The attorney looked up. "Yes." Olivia stared at the investor. "Then the contract was never necessary." The room froze. William's head snapped toward her. Even the investor seemed caught off guard. Only for a second. But she saw it. That tiny flicker. That tiny mistake. William stepped closer. "Explain." His voice was harder now. Desperate beneath the anger. Olivia swallowed. She could feel sweat gathering in her palms. The polished silver serving tray nearby reflected fragments of frightened faces. "If the information was already taken," she said carefully, "then controlling the company afterward would not be the goal. The data would be." Nobody moved. One investor slowly lowered his phone. Another stared directly at the foreign guest. The atmosphere changed again. This was no longer a business disagreement. This was something larger. The investor laughed suddenly. The sound echoed unnaturally through the room. "This is absurd." Nobody joined him. The silence that followed was devastating. William turned toward the attorneys. "Verify everything." Chairs scraped across marble floors. Phones rang. Screens refreshed. The room became a storm of whispered conversations and rising panic. Yet Olivia could not stop looking at the investor's briefcase. Something about it felt wrong. Then she saw it. A small red light. Barely visible beneath the edge of the leather flap. Her stomach dropped. The light blinked once. Then again. Rhythmic. Deliberate. Olivia had seen devices like that before. Not during translation work. During investigations. Data transfer indicators. Her pulse thundered in her ears. "William!" Her voice was barely above a whisper. He ignored her. Too focused on the attorneys. Too focused on saving his deal. William! Louder this time. He turned, irritated. What? Olivia pointed toward the briefcase. The entire room followed her gaze. The investor immediately reached for it. Too late. Sophia saw the blinking light too. Dad? Her voice trembled. The investor grabbed the briefcase and stood. Several guests rose from their chairs instinctively. Nobody touched him. Nobody blocked him. Yet the room suddenly felt much smaller. Much more dangerous. The blinking light continued beneath the leather flap. One pulse. Then another. The attorney nearest the table slowly stepped backward. That is not part of the contract process. Nobody breathed. William stared at the briefcase. Then at the investor. Then back at the blinking light. Realization began spreading across his face. Not anger. Not embarrassment. Fear. Genuine fear. The investor looked around the room one final time. Then he smiled. Calmly. Confidently. As though the outcome had already been decided. And before anyone could stop him, a new alert appeared on every phone in the room at exactly the same moment. Access transfer complete. Access transfer complete. The message glowed across every screen in the room like a verdict. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The only sound came from the low mechanical vibration beneath the mansion as the servers continued running somewhere below the marble floors. William stared at his phone. Then at the investor. Then back at the phone. His breathing became uneven. The billionaire who controlled boardrooms, governments, and billion-dollar negotiations suddenly looked like a man watching his empire slip through his fingers. What did you take? He asked. The investor did not answer. He simply closed the briefcase and adjusted his jacket. The calmness in that movement terrified everyone. Around the table, cameras continued recording. Tiny red lights blinked from phones held by investors and advisors. Every expression carried the same emotion now. Fear. Olivia felt it too. But beneath the fear was something else. A pattern. Something nobody else had noticed. William slammed his hand onto the table. Crystal glasses rattled. Answer me. The investor smiled faintly. You are asking the wrong question. The room went colder. Several attorneys immediately began making calls. Their voices overlapped in urgent whispers. One of them suddenly looked up from his screen. His face had gone pale. The breach did not start 37 minutes ago. Silence. William turned sharply. What? The attorney swallowed. It started 6 months ago. A shockwave moved through the room. Olivia felt her stomach tighten. 6 months. Long before tonight. Long before the contract. Long before anyone suspected anything. William looked genuinely stunned. That is impossible. Yet nobody sounded convinced anymore. The attorney turned his screen around. Log files. Access histories. Hidden activity buried beneath ordinary system traffic. Layer after layer. Someone had been inside for months. Watching. Mapping. Learning. The acquisition was only the final step. William slowly sat down. His chair scraped against the marble floor. For the first time all evening, he looked defeated. Not angry. Defeated. Olivia watched the room unravel around him. Investors quietly stepped away from the table. Advisors avoided eye contact. The atmosphere had changed completely. The powerful man everyone followed now looked vulnerable. Then another realization hit her. Hard. She looked at the investor again. He was too relaxed. Far too relaxed for someone whose operation had just been exposed. Her pulse accelerated. No! The word escaped before she could stop it. William immediately looked toward her. So did everyone else. The pressure returned instantly. The maid. Again. The outsider standing in the middle of a room full of executives. William's eyes narrowed. What now? The frustration in his voice filled the room. Olivia hesitated. Every instinct warned her to stay quiet. Yet the feeling would not go away. The investor wanted them focused on the breach. Focused on the data. Focused on the contract. Why? Because something else mattered more. Something bigger. Her gaze drifted toward the stack of acquisition documents. Then toward the blinking light beneath the briefcase flap. Then toward the foreign investor himself. Suddenly she noticed what nobody else had. He kept checking the antique clock mounted above the fireplace. Every few minutes. The same clock. The same nervous glance. Waiting. Counting down. Olivia's heartbeat thundered inside her chest. The transfer is not finished. The room froze. The investor's smile vanished. Just for a second. That was enough. William stood again. Explain. Olivia pointed toward the clock. He is waiting for something. Nobody moved. Nobody blinked. The investor tightened his grip on the briefcase handle. William saw it. The attorneys saw it. The investors saw it. For the first time all night, every person in the room was looking at Olivia instead of through her. The shift was impossible to miss. Yet before anyone could speak, the lights throughout the mansion flickered. Once. Twice. Then a deep alarm sounded somewhere below the house. A long mechanical warning echoing up through the floors. Every phone screen refreshed simultaneously. And the new alert made the color drain from every face in the room. Secondary authorization detected. Inside the building. Inside the building. The words remained glowing on every screen long after the alarm faded. Nobody spoke. The mansion seemed to inhale and hold its breath. The mechanical vibration beneath the floors gradually slowed until only a faint hum remained. Emergency status lights reflected across silver serving trays, crystal glasses, and polished metal fixtures. Cold blue light painted every face in the room. Olivia stood perfectly still. For the first time all evening, she was not the most nervous person in the room. William was. The realization unsettled him. His fingers tightened around his phone. His eyes moved from the alert to the investor, then back again. He was searching for control. Finding none. Around the dining table, investors exchanged uneasy glances. Nobody was laughing anymore. Nobody was looking at Olivia like a servant. They were watching her the way people watch the only person who might know where the fire started. The silence grew heavier. Somewhere far below the mansion, a distant security door closed with a metallic thud. The sound echoed upward through hidden corridors. Olivia listened carefully. Her pulse remained steady. That surprised even her. The investor noticed it too. His confidence had begun to crack. Tiny signs. A clenched jaw. A restless hand. Eyes moving too quickly. The calm mask was slipping. William stepped toward Olivia. Not aggressively. Desperately. What does it mean? His voice was lower now. Quieter. Gone was the arrogance from the beginning of the night. Gone was the mockery. The room noticed. Olivia could feel dozens of eyes shifting between them. The power dynamic had begun changing. Slowly. Almost invisibly. Yet everyone felt it. Olivia looked toward the blinking light hidden beneath the investor's briefcase. Then toward the security alert. Then toward the antique clock above the fireplace. Something connected all three. She could feel it. The answer sat just beyond reach. Sophia quietly moved closer. You already know something. Olivia did not answer immediately. The hesitation made the room even quieter. Rain tapped softly against the windows now. The storm was moving away, leaving only tension behind. Olivia finally spoke. The second authorization did not surprise him. Every head turned toward the investor. He remained silent. That silence became its own confession. William noticed. His expression darkened. You knew someone was inside. The investor smiled faintly. Not denial. Not agreement. Something worse. Certainty. The room chilled. One attorney checked the security logs again. Another refreshed network reports. The same conclusion appeared every time. The second authorization had been approved manually from somewhere inside the estate. Not remotely. Not externally. Someone had physically been here. Throughout the entire dinner. Listening. Waiting. Watching. Olivia felt the realization spreading through the room. Suspicion was no longer focused on outsiders. It was turning inward. Toward the mansion itself. Toward people everyone trusted. William understood it too. That frightened him more than the breach. He slowly looked around the room. Advisors. Attorneys. Investors. Family. For the first time all night, he was questioning everyone. The emotional weight hit him visibly. His shoulders lowered. His confidence faded another step. Then a phone vibrated softly against the table. Nobody jumped. Nobody spoke. Yet every person looked. The sound felt enormous in the silence. The attorney nearest William stared at his screen. His face changed instantly. Not fear. Shock. Genuine shock. Sir? William turned. What? The attorney swallowed hard. The authorization credentials belong to someone with unrestricted executive access. The room froze again. Olivia felt her heartbeat slow. Not accelerate. Slow. Because suddenly everything made sense. The contract. The breach. The timing. The confidence. The countdown. This operation was never built around stealing access. It was built around being given access. The investor was not the key. He was the recipient. The room remained perfectly silent as the truth approached. William noticed Olivia's expression. What is it? She looked at him carefully. Then at the family photographs displayed along the far wall. Then back at him. The answer was sitting in front of everyone now. Hidden in plain sight. Yet nobody wanted to see it. Sophia followed Olivia's gaze. Her eyes widened instantly. William noticed. The attorney noticed. Even the investor stopped smiling. Olivia drew a slow breath. The room waited. And then security monitors throughout the mansion suddenly flickered to life. One by one. Every screen displaying the same image. A live camera feed from inside William Harrington's private office. And standing alone beside his desk was someone nobody expected to see. The security feed flickered once. Then stabilized. Every screen in the mansion displayed the same image. William Harrington's private office. The room went silent. Not ordinary silence. The kind that presses against your chest. The kind that makes every breath sound too loud. Investors stared. Attorneys stopped typing. Even the rain outside seemed distant now. Standing beside William's desk was a woman. Mid-30s. Dark blazer. Calm posture. She was not rushing. Not hiding. Not panicking. She simply stood there looking directly into the camera. William's face strained of color. No. The word barely escaped his lips. Across the room, Sophia looked equally stunned. Olivia watched both of them carefully. Something had changed. This was no stranger. This was someone who belonged here. The woman on the screen slowly reached into a folder resting on William's desk. Then she held up a document toward the camera. Several attorneys stepped closer to the monitors. One of them immediately froze. That cannot be right. The room erupted into whispers. Phones lifted higher. Camera lenses focused. The tension became electric. William grabbed the nearest monitor and leaned closer. Who is she? Nobody answered. Yet Olivia noticed something. The foreign investor had stopped smiling entirely. For the first time all night, fear appeared on his face. Real fear. That terrified her more than anything else. Because men like him did not fear mistakes. They feared exposure. Olivia stepped toward the screen. Every eye followed her movement. The same people who had laughed at her an hour ago now watched as if she carried the missing piece of a puzzle nobody else could solve. The pressure should have overwhelmed her. Instead, she felt strangely calm. The answer had been hiding in plain sight from the beginning. The sentence. The contract. The breach. The access transfer. None of it had ever been about money alone. It was about information. Proof. The woman on the monitor slowly opened the document. One page. Then another. Then another. A chain of signatures appeared. Dates. Authorizations. Transfer approvals. The attorneys immediately recognized them. Their reactions spread across the room like a shockwave. One investor lowered his phone completely. Another sat down without realizing it. William stared at the screen in disbelief. Those records were destroyed. The room froze. Olivia's eyes narrowed. Destroyed. Not lost. Destroyed. The distinction mattered. She looked at William. Then at the documents. Then back at the investor. Suddenly everything aligned. The hidden clause. The breach. The countdown. The second authorization. The operation was never about stealing control. It was about preventing those records from becoming public. The realization struck with such force that she almost spoke immediately. Almost. But she waited. Because the room was finally listening. The woman on the screen placed one final document on the desk. The camera zoomed automatically. Every face in the room reflected pale blue light from the monitors. William's breathing became heavier. Sophia covered her mouth. The foreign investor looked ready to leave. Then the document became visible. Complete silence. It was not a financial record. It was a translation report. Olivia's heart stopped. She recognized the format instantly. The layout. The coding structure. The multilingual annotations. She had written reports exactly like it years ago. An attorney whispered, "This entire investigation started overseas." Olivia stepped closer. Her pulse accelerated. Then she saw a name printed near the bottom of the page. Her name. Olivia Carter. The room exploded into confusion. Dozens of heads turned toward her at once. William looked stunned. Sophia looked stunned. Even the attorneys seemed unable to process it. Olivia felt the floor disappear beneath her. The report had been filed years ago during the international investigation linked to the same symbols she recognized on the investor's briefcase. Somehow, the evidence everybody was chasing tonight traced directly back to work she had done long before she ever became a maid. The room no longer saw a servant. They saw the person who had unknowingly left the trail that could destroy the entire scheme. William stared at her. The humiliation he had forced upon her earlier now hung over him like a shadow. "You knew all this?" His voice cracked. Olivia slowly shook her head. "No." The answer was honest. The room remained silent. Then the woman on the monitor looked directly into the camera and spoke for the first time. "If Olivia Carter is in that house, ask her about Project Mariner." Every person in the room turned toward Olivia. She did not move. She did not blink. Because Project Mariner was the one thing she had sworn never to talk about again. Project Mariner. The name settled over the room like a wave moving through still water. Nobody spoke. Nobody even seemed willing to breathe. The monitors cast cold blue light across stunned faces while the soft mechanical hum beneath the mansion faded into the background. Olivia stood motionless. Every eye was on her now. The investors who had laughed. The attorneys who had doubted. The executives who had ignored her. Even the cameras recording from trembling hands seemed to wait for her next word. Yet Olivia said nothing. Her silence carried more weight than any explanation. Across the room, William Harrington stared at her, as though seeing her for the first time. Not the maid. Not the employee. The woman standing at the center of everything. The woman who had somehow understood what nobody else did. The realization hit him visibly. Olivia saw it happen. His shoulders lowered. His jaw relaxed. The certainty that had defined him all evening was gone. Replaced by something unfamiliar. Regret. Deep regret. On the monitor, The woman inside William's office remained calm. She knew she had everyone's attention. Project Mariner was not an acquisition investigation, she said quietly. It was an intelligence operation disguised as one. A ripple moved through the room. Several attorneys exchanged stunned looks. One investor slowly sat down. Another lowered his phone completely. The atmosphere had changed again. Not panic. Understanding. Piece by piece, the truth was finally becoming visible. Olivia looked toward the floor briefly. Memories she had buried years ago pressed against the edges of her mind. Endless translations. Hidden communications. Offshore meetings. Names that never appeared on official documents. She had never been an investigator. She had only translated what others could not understand. Yet those translations had exposed a network that operated across continents. The same symbol. The same structure. The same people. The realization spread through the room. The report carrying Olivia's name was not evidence of guilt. It was evidence of expertise. The room understood it all at once. The woman they had treated like background noise was the only person there who had seen this pattern before. William closed his eyes briefly. The humiliation he had directed at Olivia now seemed to hang over him like a storm cloud. Every joke. Every dismissal. Every smirk. The investors remembered them too. Nobody looked comfortable. Sophia stepped closer to Olivia. Her voice was soft. You tried to warn us. Olivia nodded once. Yes. No anger. No satisfaction. Just truth. The simplicity of it made the room even quieter. William swallowed hard. His gaze never left Olivia. And I laughed. The words barely escaped him. Nobody responded. They did not need to. The silence answered for everyone. The emotional collapse was no longer happening to Olivia. It was happening to the people who had judged her. Around the room, faces changed. Skepticism became admiration. Doubt became respect. The reversal was complete. One investor slowly shook his head. She was right from the beginning. Another nodded. A third looked genuinely embarrassed. Olivia felt the shift. Not because anyone said it aloud. Because she could see it in their eyes. They were no longer waiting for her to fail. They were waiting for her to lead. The realization unsettled William the most. He had built his entire life on recognizing talent, predicting risk, reading people. Yet the most important person in the room had been standing beside him for 18 months, and he never saw her. The woman on the monitor finally turned toward the camera again. The breach can still be stopped. The room froze. Hope appeared for the first time all evening. Attorneys immediately looked up. Investors leaned forward. William's eyes widened. How? The woman hesitated. For the first time, uncertainty crossed her face. There is one final authorization key. Complete silence. The words echoed through the room. Olivia felt her heartbeat slow again. One final key. One final barrier. One final chance. The woman continued. Project Mariner identified it years ago. William stepped closer to the monitor. Where is it? The answer did not come immediately. The pause felt endless. Then the woman looked directly into the camera. Directly at Olivia. The room held its breath. We believed the key was lost. Nobody moved. Nobody blinked. The woman drew a slow breath. Until 20 minutes ago. William turned toward Olivia. So did every investor. Every attorney. Every person in the mansion. Olivia stood perfectly still beneath the cold glow of the monitors. And on the screen behind her, a classified image slowly appeared. It was a photograph taken years ago. A much younger Olivia Carter standing beside the very key everyone had spent years searching for. The photograph remained on the screen. Nobody spoke. The cold blue glow from the monitors reflected across crystal glasses, polished silver, and the faces of people who no longer knew what to say. The mansion had become completely still. Even the mechanical systems beneath the floor seemed quieter now. Olivia stared at the image of her younger self. She remembered the day instantly. The endless reports. The translations. The warnings nobody wanted to hear. Back then, she was just another name on a project. Another voice translating words powerful people ignored. Yet somehow, years later, that forgotten work had returned to save an empire. Around the room, investors slowly lowered their phones. One by one, camera lenses pointed toward the floor. Nobody wanted to capture a scandal anymore. They were witnessing something else. Something rarer. William Harrington stood motionless beside the dining table. The billionaire who had spent the evening controlling every conversation no longer looked powerful. He looked human. Tired. Honest. The photograph remained on the monitor while attorneys quietly confirmed the final authorization pathway. The key existed. The breach could be stopped. The operation that had been building for months was finally unraveling. Yet the room barely reacted. The emotional center of the night had shifted somewhere deeper. William looked toward Olivia. The distance between them felt much larger than the few feet separating them. Every joke he had made, every assumption, every moment he had dismissed her replayed silently across his face. Olivia noticed it. So did everyone else. The room no longer saw a billionaire and a maid. They saw a man confronting his own blindness. Sophia quietly stepped beside her father. Neither spoke. They did not need to. The truth was already standing in front of them. One attorney finally broke the silence. The transfer has been contained. The words should have triggered celebration. Relief. Applause. Instead, only a few exhausted breaths escaped around the room. The danger had passed. But nobody seemed interested in the victory. Their attention remained fixed on Olivia. She had spent most of the evening invisible. Now she was impossible to ignore. Yet she stood exactly the same way she had stood all night. Calm. Composed. Unchanged by the room's sudden admiration. That quiet dignity affected people more than any speech ever could. William slowly approached her. His shoes echoed softly across the marble floor. The sound seemed louder in the silence. When he stopped in front of her, the room held its breath one final time. Olivia met his eyes. There was no anger in hers. No triumph. Only calm. William struggled for words. The struggle itself surprised everyone. Men like him were rarely speechless. Finally he nodded once. I was wrong. The sentence was simple. Honest. Heavy. Nobody looked away. William glanced around the room. Toward the investors. The attorneys. The executives who had followed his lead all evening. She warned us. His voice remained quiet. And I laughed. The admission settled over the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. No one argued. No one defended him. There was nothing left to defend. William looked back at Olivia. For a moment, emotion threatened to overtake him. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and removed the fountain pen he had nearly used to sign the agreement hours earlier. The same pen that symbolized everything he almost lost. Slowly, he placed it in Olivia's hand. The gesture stunned the room. Not because of its value. Because of what it meant. Trust. Respect. Recognition. The power dynamic that had defined the entire night dissolved in a single movement. Olivia looked at the pen briefly. Then at William. Neither spoke. They did not need to. The silence carried the meaning. Outside, the storm had ended. The first light of morning began filtering through the enormous windows overlooking the city. Warm gold replaced the cold blue glow of the monitors. Shadows softened. Faces relaxed. The mansion felt different now. Lighter. Honest. Guests quietly gathered their belongings. Investors left without speeches. Attorneys closed their laptops. The crisis was over. One by one, people departed. Yet many glanced back toward Olivia before leaving. Not because she demanded attention. Because they would remember her. Hours later, the dining room stood nearly empty. The silver trays had been collected. The wine glasses cleared away. The contracts removed. Olivia walked toward the entrance hall carrying the same tray she had held when the night began. The metal reflected the golden morning light. Behind her, William stood near the windows watching the sunrise over the city skyline. He did not call her back. He did not offer a title. He did not offer a reward. Some things were bigger than that. Olivia reached the front doors and paused for a moment. Warm sunlight stretched across the marble floor and touched her feet. She looked ahead. Then stepped forward into the new day. Behind her, an empire had been saved. But the thing that changed forever was far simpler. For the first time, the people inside had learned to see her. And in the quiet glow of morning, that felt like the most powerful victory of all.